Hello, my name is Jonathan Forster, and welcome to the Multi-Story Thinking podcast on interior design. I'm an interior designer and educator. My job is to improve quality of life and productivity by helping people to create beautiful and practical spaces to live and work in. The Multi-Story Thinking podcast takes an educational slant to the interior design world. If, like me, you are curious about how things are done within the industry, want to know how people got their breaks and how they've developed their careers, and get some top tips and advice, then this is the podcast for you. So sit back, relax, as we help unravel the mysteries of interior design. Nathan Lonsdale is a founding partner of The Lab, a collective of businesses and freethinkers, architects, designers, developers, engineers, social scientists, educators and technologists, which includes Space Lab, an architectural design studio. I spoke to Nathan in real life in the Depot, a co-worker space near Old Street in London, where he introduced me to Sense, an intelligence-driven platform which is revolutionising how people use space and how we design space. In this episode, we discover how academic research informs the design process, the importance of integrating workplace strategy and workplace design, how real-time monitoring can help spaces evolve in response to human behaviour, and why, if you're looking for a quiet day in the office, don't go in on a Tuesday. What's interesting is why it's become necessary and why you developed it, and that goes back to your sort of roots of being a design company working with people to design spaces.
Basically, that's exactly it. Yeah.
And how did that come about? What was the
Space Lab?
Yeah.
So we started Space Lab in June 2002. Me and a guy called Andrew Budgeon, and we were working together in a previous company. And we found an opportunity to, in some ways, buy ourselves out of that company and start Space Lab. And the ethos was always about how can we design better space to help people, be the better they can be, but also how do we help people connect? Working along the premise that we believe that really, as human beings, we are born to connect on different levels, some more than others, but we are still born to connect. We can't live in isolation. So we went on a bit of a journey through design of trying to create spaces that bring people together. We got quite heavily into workplace, and we started partnering with UCL. So UCL is still our academic partner to this day, of how can we use different techniques, collect different levels of quantitative and qualitative data to use then to reshape space, to reshape it in a way that brings people together, but not in a meeting room type format, in a I bump into you, you bump into me, we have a chat, we get to know each other, and so on.
Yeah, so that's looking at a way of measuring and understanding human behaviour.
Basically.
And the types of behaviours that are beneficial for collaborative working or creative work or any type of work.
Yeah, or even private work.
Yeah.
It's not just about bringing people together all the time, it's about getting spaces, connect spaces in the right way that gives people that breathing space or that to get togetherness type space.
Yeah.
And so we started working a lot for quite big businesses where we would sit with the C-suite, we'd listen to what their business strategy is, and then really we'd go away, take that thinking of where they want to get to as a business, and in essence wrap space around that.
Yeah.
And that's really what we've always done.
Yeah.
And but obviously between us wrapping space around it and listening to them, then we speak to different levels of the business, we do questionnaires. A lot of people did all this type of stuff, And I guess one of the big pieces that we always did was observation studies. We started off with pen and paper, and we moved on to having our own app of collecting that information. And generally it would always be the students from UCL that we would pay to come and help us do this. So there's that, they understood why we were doing what we're doing, and they helped us out and so on.
Yeah, because that's the laborious bit, isn't it, of tracking everybody in the organisation, what they do all day.
Yeah, And where the biggest errors are.
Yeah.
Generally, in any pieces of data we find, it was always in that, whether it was because they'd missed something accidentally or through calculation something went a little bit awry, but that was generally where the biggest place of error was in the observation studies.
Yeah. So I mean, I've done a few of those, and people are always saying that they've got their own version of it, and there are more scientific and more kind of credible approaches, I suppose. But it is a bit hit and miss, isn't it? Of trying to get a focus group in a room for afternoon and let them tell you about what they do.
Yeah. And it's, and I think the difficulty with workplace consultancy, and we I mean, probably in some ways. I mean, we started doing this 15 years ago. So we were in some ways doing it before people really knew what a workplace consultant was. And I remember one particular presentation I was giving to a group of corporate property advisors, directors from different businesses. And I was trying to explain the importance of collecting data and understand how a business works to really make sure that people were using the space in a way that would develop the business strategy of that business. And literally, they just laughed me out of a room.
Really? Yeah.
They were just like, no, just about, it's a space.
Stick a load of desks in.
It's all about the deals we do on the rent, rates and service charge. That's what it's all about.
Yeah.
And a little bit of location, But I mean, fast forward 15 years, those people 10 years later were calling me, remember that discussion that you had? So it's quite funny, it was good fun. But we just found that over the years, there's some fantastic workplace consultants do some great strategic work, some great thinking, some great change, telling some great design. But on the flip side, there's also a lot of people that are using workplace consultancy as a way in to a business, giving them a bit of a shambolic answer to what they think their strategic vision is, and then a company to deliver on that. But purely, it's not that they're not doing it because they're a workplace consultancy or they believe in what they're doing. It's just a way in to a bigger project.
I think I'm thinking about when I realised that understanding the users was the most important thing.
100%.
It's a long. It seemed like a long time until people were talking about it in that way.
Yeah.
Because what you can do as a designer is sort of throw a load of different space scenarios into a building that you know are going to work.
Yeah.
But it's the more focused approach to really understand a business is what you're talking about, and that's where the real skill is.
I think so. And it's understanding the nuances and what's going to make that business tick, and what's going to give it that space that you're creating, that atmosphere, that vibe, that sense of togetherness and belonging.
Yeah. It's
the stuff that you can't see but you can feel that I always think come through a really good strategic thinking of how you take people on that journey about the user, and then how it then gets played out in a 3D form by the design, and you really feel it and see it, I think, and you'll know a space that hasn't been thought about, and it's again sometimes it can look great, but people just the feeling's not there.
Yeah.
So I do think it's about the love and the thinking you put in the first place to really drive that through into a great space.
And the stuff I've been doing is a lot about the engagement with the users, and getting them to buy into the process, and even contribute design-wise in terms of, so it becomes their own design almost. But
well, I think that's what we're doing. I mean, I always think part of our role is to translate what they're thinking into a unified form and into a 3D form from which they then can start to use. So I think I totally agree. I mean, it's always about, for me, I agree, take that user on the journey with you, make sure they understand what they're telling you, and then they understand why they're getting what they're getting. And it kind of follows through. So 100%,
getting people to come with you on that journey, and also not just the person at the top.
No.
It's about the people all the way down the organisation.
If anything, and I've said this to a lot of, I'm sure you've said the same, I've said to a lot of exec teams, this is not about you. And if you think it's about you, then we need to sort of undo that and help you understand this is about bringing everyone out there, in this space on that journey with you. Because if they feel it and they get invigorated and they get passionate, then your job is going to be a lot easier than it is if they don't.
So that's like 100% sort of the way to go. And so you've been doing a lot. You're benefiting from the research and the sort of more academic would you call it academic research with?
Yeah, UCL. Yeah, it was really good. I mean, the fantastic first person that came and worked with us was a lady called Kirsten Saylor, who is flying now. She's got a great company called Brainy Birds, and she's doing so well at UCL. It's fantastic. But she came to join us on a KTP. So, I mean, she had as much to do with our success as everyone that's sort of gone on since she left and moved on to greater things. And so we did a KTP. It was really successful. We use that KTP to understand what techniques can we use, you know, and then it just kind of developed from there, really. We've done a couple of KTPs, a couple of PhDs sponsored, and just ongoing, really.
So that's feeding into your process then?
Yeah. Well, my Andrew, business partner Andrew, his background was very much more in the spatial science. I mean, mine wasn't. Mine was just architecture, really, and a bit of design, probably a bit more business and sales in some way, I guess. But his was very much in the spatial science. So he had very close links with UCL before we started Space Lab. He used to be at UCL for starters, and worked with a company called Space Syntax. So a lot of the techniques that they use, we brought into that they used on the more urban scale, we brought into a more workplace scale and tried to use it in a similar way, really.
Yeah.
And then obviously built our own sort of stuff around it.
Yeah.
So.
And how did that impact the design process for you? Where did you see the changes in how you were approaching it?
Well, I think there's some great stuff, but also some stuff that we look back now and think, oh, we should have done that differently. But so they have a piece of software that was designed within UCL, taken on by Space Syntax. We also call it depth map analysis, which basically is it's using like a heat mapping type algorithm to understand where people are going to connect in space. So you can measure it across different floor plates, between floor plates, and it gives you it's like a predictive tool as to where people might come together. That really started to inform the way we then do layouts. So we weren't just doing a layout based on, does that fit?
Yeah.
or can't my desk, can we get in there? It was done more on actually, if this is where people are going to connect, do we put a staircase there? Do we do this there? So it's a little bit of science behind how we did our layouts, and we're still using the same technique today. I guess the other bits that we've wrapped around that are some of the data that we've been collecting, and then what we found is that we ended up with a workplace consultancy team, we ended up with a design team, and then sometimes it was never the two shall meet.
Right.
And it was, we when we first started that, it was very much, everyone got on, but it was like, we'll do our piece of work, we'll give you a report that we gave to the client strategically, we'll hand it over to the designers, you now follow it on. To which they did, but I think as time grew on, we realised actually the starting point here and the end point here, there needs to be much more overlap between the designer and the strategist and consultants. Yeah. So we started to overlap that more. So some of the designers that were going to be working on a project would then come into these strategic meetings with the client so they can understand why they're designing what they're designing.
Yeah.
And they're not just getting it from this written report and a few diagrams here and there too.
The danger with not getting that integration is that the designers will just design what they thought they were going to design in the first place.
And that's exactly what happened. That's exactly it. Yeah, and they go, don't need to worry about that.
Yeah.
Because they never really felt it from the client.
Yeah.
They never felt anything. No, it was always this.
Yeah, or they could make their design fit the rationale that they were taking out. But
you got it. But also on the flip side, that you've got the client going, well, this is what you told me I was going to get. I needed this many desks, this, that. It's going to be set like that. Da, 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 da. And now you're coming back to me and you're saying, actually, it's not that. So we ended up that where the actual strategy report was starting to be done more by the designer than it was by the consultant.
Right. Yeah.
And that kind of grew and grew and grew, where in the end we end up they're almost one team.
Yeah.
Actually, and that's just what we learned over the number of years in terms of how you do that.
Yeah. So the data collection, and maybe we'll come to these sensors that are in the ceiling above us. What does that brought to the whole process?
So about 3 or 4 years ago, we're still in that workplace consulting design mode, typically as we know it. And a few things were kind of coming to the fore at the time. one was we were finding ourselves going in and checking other people's strategic reports that had been done.
Yeah.
Because a client had gone, I'm sure this isn't right, but can you come in and check it for us? So they were kind of going over it again. That was one thing that was happening. The other thing that was happening was that, and a good example, we did a big piece of work for a big global media company. And they said, can you come and do a piece? We need to know how much space do we need? How do we set our building? We're going to stay where we are. Can we co-locate some of the other buildings into our building? We just didn't know. They didn't know. So we did I thought it was a great piece of work over a 3-4 month period. Mixture of the workplace design. The end result was, right, this is the guiding principle. This is what we think you should do. This is how much space you can save, and so on and so on and so on. Everyone was really happy. Bought in LA. They'd bought into it, and all good. They didn't move in for 2.5 years after we'd done that report. So quite honestly, as much as it was great, and they still use some of the guiding principles, the business had changed. A lot of the personnel had changed. You know, the whole thinking, everything had changed. So it was, as much as it was a great piece of work, it was almost kind of irrelevant.
Yeah.
And then that was coupled with, then everybody moved into this new, great, fantastic space. Wow, isn't it brilliant, you know, and so on and so on. But of course, when you move into a new space, in a new way of working, you don't just stop the way you work and keep on working like that. The way you work transformed in a new space. But there was no way of really measuring that the effects of the space and what changes were starting to happen with the way you use space based on the new space, if you see what I mean. So we kind of took a step back and said, okay, there must be something else we can do here. Because we must be able to use technology now to help people pre-move. So that can collect a lot of the quantitative data, maybe even some qualitative data. It can maybe tell us actually tell them how much space they need. And it can then also inform the designer as to how they might go about reshaping. And also, they don't have to develop this new design based on a 1-week occupancy study, sometimes 2, done by human beings, collecting data every hour, quite often, or maybe every half hour, that would then drive this whole new way of working into this, spending £35 million on a space. So we went on a bit of a journey. We recognised that some form of sensor can be used. We had no idea of software and what it really meant. We actually started off by putting sensors in our residential units that we built through Urban Lab. We'd just finished 23 flats in Hackney as part of a development which Space Lab had designed it, Energy Lab had done the M&E, and we obviously got it built. And so we put it in 17 of the flats. Simple PI. When someone walks in, they know someone's using it. When someone walks out, so we started to get some idea of how a simple binary PIR sensor can measure how people are using space. We then went on a bit of a journey of building our own sensor. Totally wrong move. Wasted a load of money. We thought we could build it. We even got a guy who used to work for Dyson to come and help us design this. And whilst we're playing around with this sensor, you know, there's people that were really making sensors, great companies. Well, they were gone, you know. And we took a step back and said, actually, we should concentrate on the software, which is our USP. So let's see how the software could make the difference, and then let's think about how we don't have our own sensor, but we piggyback on other sensors.
Yeah.
So whatever sensor came out on the market, we were able to piggyback on the newest, latest, trendiest, most accurate, biggest coverage sensor, but we will still use our software.
Your own software.
Yeah.
And that's the software that detects people moving around space. And it's like, I'm just looking up and seeing, it's like a little smoke detector sort of thing.
Basically, yeah. That one is from a company called Point Grab.
Yeah.
Again, great company. They're the first. That's the first sensor that we brought onto the Sense platform.
So that's collecting the data, and your software package does all the magic.
Basically,
makes
that's what it
understandable.
Does. Yeah. So what we do with all the ceiling mounted sensors, we literally we will take the XY coordinate. So you and me are 2 XY coordinates in this room, and that gets delivered every 2 to 5 seconds. We take that information and we turn it into what essentially is our front customer facing I guess 24-hour workplace consultant dashboard.
Yeah.
And today that's basically what we're doing. But what we started to find now is we're now talking to two other sensor companies about bringing their soft sensors on. We're in the new year we're bringing on an air quality sensor. On our roadmap, we're going to explore how weather conditions change the way people occupy buildings. So, especially now, I mean, if it's raining, I will definitely go, I'm not going to bother going in today,
You're getting some correlation with factors that you wouldn't never find out
Absolutely
about.
Right.
Yeah.
Absolutely right. So the dashboard now really is acting as a real-time workplace consultancy light, because it's really getting quantitative, not getting the qualitative side.
Yeah.
So we still need that qualitative side, but it's doing it in real time.
Yeah.
So you can do it it tells you how much space you need. You do it post, it watches what you're doing and gives insights and intelligence as how you can keep on improving the way you use your space.
Yeah. That's great. That continuity. I'm thinking about a new design based on, could even be the best possible workplace consultancy strategy in the world. Like you say, day one, it's starting to degrade, isn't it, and be abused and changed. And you're expecting that to last, 5, 10, 15 years?
Well, I mean, it's a cycle of our industry, isn't it?
Yeah.
You'll go and do a fantastic down, everyone walks away happy. Next call you get will be in either lease break in 5 years' time or at the end of the lease. Oh, our space don't work anymore. Can you come back in and start again?
Yeah.
And that is...
So this is giving you the opportunity to evolve continually.
Yeah.
Depending on how the client is interacting with you, I suppose, but they've got the data coming in.
Well, they've got the insights. So one thing we try to do is not give the client data.
Yeah,
because if we're giving the client data, they've still got to translate that somehow. So what we've done, and this is our main USP really, that differs from most of the platforms, is that we won't give them the data, we'll give them the insight to help them take the action. Then they've just got to take the action, or decide if they want to take the action or not.
Yeah.
And that will come down to, this room's never been used for the last 3 months. We suggest that you marry the room 5 over there, because that's heavily used. Try doing that and see if it gets better used.
Yeah, so you're getting some data that provides you with the opportunity to create an insight, a suggestion, an alteration that could be decorative, or it could be in terms of how the space is managed, or how warm it is, possibly. There might be something about that space that people don't like, so you can focus in on that particular bit of information.
Exactly that. But what we're finding now, the more we talk to customers, is that because essentially what we're doing is tracking the way people move in real time. So when we start to think about that, we start to get questions like, oh, can you create automated cleaning schedules? So we're only cleaning buildings that people use? Well, the answer is yes, we can do that. So we're finding that this is becoming much more of an operational tool as much as a workplace consultancy tool, which is great.
So if they want to do something that's going to interrupt work, they know when the downtimes are. Yeah,
they'll know that. They'll know, because we make a big play of making sure it covers all spaces too.
Yeah.
Whereas most sensor companies will just put it over where the furniture is, which is fine, because they're measuring furniture and how people use it, or meeting room furniture or whatever. But because our ethos has always been about people, we were really keen that we measure the way people move.
Yeah.
Then you can still measure how furniture is being used, but there's so much more you can start to do with.
It's the bits in between, isn't
it? I think it's the bits in between.
Yeah.
And we had one customer said, oh, can you measure all the crap spaces for me? Well, I tried to delve a bit deep. What do you mean? He said, well, storerooms, cleaner's thing, kitchen, tea point, print rooms, all them spaces that we always feel like we have to have and more of, but don't really get used very often.
Yeah.
So that's that's a different. But we're finding there's nuances in every business. People will always look to want something different. It's generally things that are causing the problems in their spaces.
Yeah. So we've got down at Plymouth in the studios there. We've got this kitchen which is down the corner, and I came across it again last week, and I just thought, oh God, has anyone actually used this? So that you'd be able to work that out, wouldn't you?
And Sense would alert it'd drop an insight in to say this hasn't been used for the last 2 months.
Yeah.
We suggest you look at using it for this.
Yeah.
And then what it's doing is looking across the most popular spaces and trying to attend to that.
Yeah. So this tool, would you call it a tool? What's it?
We call it our dashboard.
Your dashboard.
Yeah.
That provides. So if you put that into a company prior to refurbishing it, that gives you that understanding of how people are operating.
Yeah.
And you can use those insights to inform the design process, along with the other qualitative data that you
collection that you would naturally do, I think, as a consultant.
And then post-occupancy, it could be used for reviewing how it's gone, and then at some point refreshing it and
what's working, what's not working, and actually watching it over time. But I think it's a little bit also, it's a bit twofold in some ways, because there's one thing me knowing as an FM or an operation running the building, but actually it's really important also that I tell everyone in the business what's happening, so they can understand it too. So they can. So it's a bit of a if I know what's happening, I can ask the question, why aren't you using this? Which you can. It's not built in yet, but we're building into the tool that you can actually ask it through this tool or dashboard. Sorry, but actually, if I can also find out and let people know that people are using these spaces, why not? Why don't you use them more? And so I think you can use the qualitative data to ask the right question to the rest of the business.
It's going to facilitate communication between the teams.
Absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah,
absolutely. I mean, the other big pre-move piece it's got is just the ability it calculates based on how you're using the building, how much space you need.
Yeah,
and it's quite accurate. It's really good. So you can see it always calculates back based on the last 7 days. So if you are moving and you're thinking, well, do I need 20,000 square foot less, or it will tell you, but it's all based on how people are using your current building.
Yeah. So that's rather than kind of intuition or just guessing.
Or 100 square foot per person, which people like to use.
Yeah.
It'll tell you the exact area. Yeah.
That's great. And what sort of scale of company does it work best at?
So we started. The biggest one we've done so far is 50,000 square foot. We've only launched it in June. But now we've got a few proposals out for a fantastic space that has been done for a company by a great architect, interior architect. But again, because the world's changing, they want to measure it, and that's for 148,000 square foot. They were concerned about putting it across the whole portfolio, but the great thing about the sensors, the actual sensors themselves, you can put them up, decommission them, and put them somewhere else too.
Yeah.
So you don't always have to have them in the building if you don't want to.
Yeah.
So we've got different. That's the biggest proposal we put out, is 148,000. But we're also there's some proposals now where we do give them a 3-month study. Go in, put the sensors in for 3 months, watch what goes on. They can have a rolling follow-on cost if they want to keep them in there, or we come out, decommission, and we can go and put them somewhere else.
Yeah. So it's either so you can get the benefit short term.
Yeah.
And for those that want to invest in it, there's a benefit longer term if they're...
So they can lease them or they can buy them. It's totally up to them. And the way the dashboard works is that's just a annual subscription to the dashboard.
Yeah.
So we've got one company that have got sensors in already, not sensors that we're linked into. So they've asked us, can we link into their sensors, and which we can. We're working on in the new year, and then they get the benefits of the Sense dashboard.
That's great. And so it doesn't know who the people are then?
No, it's totally anonymous. Yeah. Totally anonymous. Yeah.
I've seen the dashboard, you've got those little sort of hotspots moving around.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah. But I think, I guess in some ways the biggest barrier that we've had is, if people haven't got sensors, then they do have to buy or lease the sensors.
Yeah.
Which is, it's generally about between 50 and 60p a square foot to purchase them. So it's still a bit of a cost.
Yeah.
In a time when people are looking to save costs, but I suppose in the long run, Spence will save you costs. But when you want to put that,
so your
investment in the first place,
it's an investment up front on something that will pay back, and probably something you wouldn't have been able to measure or anticipate. But so I think particularly the occupancy space you need, that's some amazing sort of insight, isn't it? If you truly understand how much space you need.
Exactly. I mean, it's interesting as well. We have spoke to 2 or 3 workplace consultancies who are looking to use Sense as a way, and they become the expert. So basically, Sense is their tool to help their customer deliver a better service. So all that legwork, all that qualitative information that is, quite frankly, we always used to find them the most boring part of what you do, is that they will use it for that tool, and they can concentrate on any qualitative workshops, just more strategic thinking, and they've got a tool that sits with them over the 3 or 4 months of their project to keep on.
I think that's great, isn't it? Because if you ask people how often they're at their desk, they're going to tell a lie, aren't they? They're going to say they're at their desk more than they are generally. Well, they'll make mistakes, won't they? But they're normally quite good at saying how they feel.
Yes.
So if you can get the data for
100%. Yeah. Well, we found when we did, because as part of the questionnaire that we did pre-pandemic as typical work records, we say how much time do you spend at your desk? So people would fill it in 2 days, 5 days, whatever it may be. We'd obviously observe it. There was always at least 30%. The time that people thought they spent at the desk was always 30% higher than it actually was.
Yeah. So the stats would be skewed then, wouldn't they?
Yeah. And put out. So I was at breakfast this morning, and someone told me a great little line I thought was good about the way we might think about workspace now. And they've got an internal saying that I think it's something like, "We're going to halve the space but double the experience." So I was like, well, okay, great.
But is that a good experience?
I don't. That depends your starting point, doesn't it?
Yeah.
But it did make me laugh. But But this is all great. But the question is, well, how, and what you're going to use to be able to do that? Because you can't just do it and then expect it to work.
Yeah.
So and I think this is where the likes of using technology in some form is going to really play a big part in helping people get to that.
Because the only way you would have worked that out would be to say, right, well, if we're going from a space to half the space, we're just going to half the number of everything. That's one way to do it, isn't it? That's not totally really going to necessarily respond to the activity that's going on.
No, and then you won't even know if the activity's been successful or not.
Yeah.
So I think it's important that people are going to need to be able to do this in some shape or form as we progress and so on. But you still see the future of work layout, and they still seem to all have a load of desks in, which I can never quite get my head around, because some of the more forward-thinking clients at the moment are very much that the home is now part of my workplace strategy. So there's 3 spaces. There is the hub, the office. There's the home, and then there's everything in between that.
Yeah.
That's all our workplace now.
Yeah.
So measuring the word people use the hub is going to be more and more important as time goes on.
And have you had any data coming through sort of as we're coming out of COVID that's been significant, or is it too early to call on that?
It's a little bit too early. The biggest one we've done, 50,000 square foot. We've looked at that. They've been in there. It's been there for 6 weeks now, and but basically they so far they need less than half the space. Actually, need 40% of the space they've got now. So that's a bit of an early. I can imagine that actually, because even pre-pandemic, I mean, what was it, about 67% was about the average peak occupancy in a building. So that would kind of start to play out really, in terms of how much space people need. And I can't remember what the busiest day was. I think the busiest day was a Tuesday.
Right. Yeah. No one likes working on a Monday.
Well, this is it. I think the way people work now, certainly the way I've noticed people start to think is, whereas before it would be all about my work, and then my personal life sort of drifts into the background somewhere. I think now it's like my personal life and the work sort of has to fit around that a bit more now.
Yeah.
So trying to get everyone together at the same time when we've all got 10 dogs all walking at different times, trying to find that bit in between that we can all sit down and talk about a project. I think the whole thing has just been thrown up in the air. So I think it's going to be quite interesting.
And I think that need for a community space or a socialising space that's what went out the window with all of us working at home. So your space has become more like those meeting spaces.
100%. I think it's going to be a bit more about that, isn't it? And I think the workplace is going to be even more fun, more than ever now.
Yeah.
To get people to come in, you're going to have to want to come in and see friends and colleagues and so on. But I think the interesting bit is also going to be, if I've got 100,000 square foot, I think, even now people will have that 100,000 square foot, all lights on, aircon on, all soft and hard FM services are all coming to that space. And I think the question is, how do I shape the way I use that building to help me reduce my operational costs and not use more so for the environment. Why would if I've got 5 people sat on one floor, 10 on another, 15 on another, why are we all not using one floor and I turn the other floors off?
Yeah.
And that's something that Sense can do. Sense can tell you how much space you need on a Monday, and therefore you only need the ground in the basement, for example. So that's the thing. It's going to be how we use the buildings operationally.
You've then got to develop more agile systems, haven't you? So it's not just one air conditioning unit filling the whole space.
Exactly. Yeah. Which really should be the right way to go from an environmental perspective.
Yeah.
I think. I was talking to, again, I won't mention the company, but we had a call the day with the company. They've got I can't remember, some 8 or 9 floors of something, and they took a view that actually at the moment team A would be on one floor, team B on another floor, team C and D on another floor. So therefore what was happening, they go in and they've got 5 people on one floor, 10 on another. So what they're doing, they're changing the way that, moving to a much more agile way of working than they've ever have done before, understandably. But what they're doing, they're going to design every floor the same. So what they can then do, they can then basically, people just come in and they can just literally go up the building as and when they need the floors, and then they can reduce it when they don't need it.
Yeah.
Which I thought was quite an interesting one.
It provides a different design challenge, doesn't it?
Yeah. So it'd be interesting how that figure out. But I think I'm waiting for the first company to go, right, I'm going to take all my desks away, keep a few, but make it a really collaborative, really change the way we think about it and reduce my space, but make it much more technology efficient, spatially efficient, and I can go and meet all my friends and my colleagues there. But no one's done that just yet.
Well, I mean, look, I'm coming up to see you, which is great in real life, and I've been working on different places, cafes and pubs, and on the train. Yeah. I haven't seen a workbench anywhere.
Exactly.
There's plenty of really nice bits of furniture that I've been using.
Yeah, exactly, and I think everyone likes it, right? I think it's great. Not forgetting all the health and safety requirements, of course, but I think that's what people are doing now.
Yeah.
We work. One of the radio stations I've been working with, and we did a project with them pre-pandemic, and we were all very set on how studios we need and the thickness of the walls and the acoustic credibility and the size of them for different stations and so on and so on. Pandemic hit, and of course they can't go into radio stations. What's been happening? Some people have been presenting radio stations from under the bed covers.
Yeah,
that was the best acoustic. But it just shows you, right, that 6 metre by 6 metre acoustically credible studio, was not really needed.
Yeah.
So I think it's really thrown so much in the air. So So the question is, for me, is like, how do we measure it? How do we use that measurement? Fundamentally, at the end of the day, it's so important that we measure how we're using spaces, so we can use that information and that intelligence to make sure we do the right thing as we move forward.
Thanks to Nathan for taking the time to speak to me. It was great to see him in real life in the Depot co-worker space, which is a really exciting space, hosts exhibitions, activities. It's a great space to get your head down or meet and collaborate. His approach to evidence-based designing, which is built around the collection of quantitative and qualitative data, shows how this can transform the design process and help to create spaces that really work for the people that are using them. The Sense platform looks like a great way to measure the performance of your space, takes the guesswork out of the design process in many ways. The dashboard gives real-time information and insights and advice on how the space is being used and how you might be able to look at improving the use of space. And this can have a real impact on the bottom line of the business, where you can start to look at saving costs and ultimately creating a better working environment for your employees. If you have a look on the links to the website, you can see some information about it. This user-focused approach to design is something that we teach the students of interior design at the University of Plymouth, and we've got a number of different engagement techniques that they are introduced to based on some of the work that I've done in my design practice. If you'd like to know how to become a kick-ass interior designer, follow the links to the interior design course at the University of Plymouth, where we teach you to put people at the centre of the design process and create joyful and sustainable spaces to support well-being, health and happiness. I'd like to thank Dave Clark from I Am The How for production support and invaluable advice in the setting up of this podcast, Kay Hansen for her planning support and co-hosting role for these and our educational podcasts at the University of Plymouth, and Mark Frith for the music. I'd like to hear your feedback. Please get in touch, and thanks for listening. Bye for now. Thank you.